Have you ever felt utterly dismissed, like your voice simply didn't matter? Imagine walking into a room where everyone, from the stern-faced judge to the sharp-suited lawyers, looks at you and sees a child. That's exactly how Ethan Vance, a bright 17-year-old, felt stepping into an arena far beyond his years. The courtroom 3C of the Los Angeles County Superior Court. He wasn't there for himself, not for a traffic ticket or a school disciplinary hearing. He was there to represent his older sister, Maya Rodriguez, in a civil case against her landlord. The air in the courtroom was thick with formality, the hushed whispers and rustling papers a stark contrast to the casual chaos of Ethan's high school hallways. The weight of the moment pressed down, but beneath Ethan's calm demeanor was a simmering mix of nervous energy and a fierce, unwavering determination to prove them all wrong. He was underestimated, dismissed by a quick glance, but he held a secret weapon. He was prepared. This wasn't just about a legal battle. It was about the power of belief in the face of doubt. Stick around to see how a high schooler takes on the legal system. What happens when an accusation isn't just false, but built on a foundation of prejudice. Maya Rodriguez's world had been thrown into disarray by a single piece of paper, an eviction notice. The reason cited? Noise complaints. A seemingly minor infraction, yet one that threatened to uproot her entire life from the modest apartment she'd called home for years. Maya, a dedicated nurse at St. Jude Medical Center, had always been quiet, responsible. The irony of being accused of excessive noise was almost laughable, if it wasn't so terrifying. Ethan, ever observant, immediately smelled a rat. The timing fell off. The vagueness of the complaint raised red flags. When Maya, distraught and overwhelmed, showed him her work schedule, the truth became blindingly clear. She had been working a double shift at St. Jude Medical Center on the night of the alleged disturbance. How could she be making noise in her apartment when she was tirelessly caring for patients miles away? This isn't just about noise, Maya, Ethan had murmured, his brow furrowed in thought. This feels calculated. He started digging, poring over Maya's lease agreement, researching tenant rights in Los Angeles, and scrutinizing the eviction notice itself. He learned that California tenant law, a complex legal labyrinth, often favored landlords in disputes unless tenants meticulously documented everything. Eviction wasn't just losing a home. It was a black mark that could make future housing impossible. His suspicions grew when he researched the property management company and its stern, unyielding property manager, Mr. Sterling. He found whispers online, stories of other long-term tenants suddenly receiving vague complaints, followed by eviction threats. It became clear this wasn't about noise. This was about gentrification by eviction. The building, located in an increasingly desirable neighborhood, was likely being primed for renovation, and long-term, lower-income tenants like Maya were simply in the way. They were seen as obstacles, not residents with rights. Maya, initially a mix of despair and resignation, started to feel a flicker of hope as Ethan worked. She watched him pore over legal documents, his face a mask of intense concentration. She felt her initial terror slowly give way to a quiet determination. Ethan, on the other hand, felt a rising tide of righteous anger. The injustice of it, the cold, calculated way they were trying to uproot his sister, fueled his drive. He was just a kid, yes, but he was driven by a powerful protective instinct. He wouldn't let them get away with it. This wasn't just Maya's fight. It was a fight against a system that often preyed on the vulnerable. Could one anonymous complaint really lead to eviction? Find out next, as Ethan dives deeper, unearthing not just the truth of Maya's innocence, but a darker, systemic issue lurking beneath the surface. How do you prepare for a fight when you're an underdog with everything to lose? Ethan Vance's preparation for court was nothing short of extraordinary. His bedroom, once a typical teenage space filled with textbooks and gaming gear, transformed into a makeshift law library. Every available surface became covered with legal tomes borrowed from the public library, printouts from online legal databases, and highlighted city ordinances related to tenant rights and property law. He didn't just memorize facts. He immersed himself in the spirit of the law, understanding the nuances of landlord-tenant relationships and the precise procedural steps required for a legal eviction. He lived and breathed the legal code, fueled by late-night coffee and an unshakable resolve. His strategy wasn't just about disproving the noise complaint. It was about exposing a calculated pattern of behavior. He approached it like a detective, meticulously gathering his arsenal of evidence. First, and most damning, were Maya's time card from St. Jude Medical Center. He'd gone with her to the hospital's HR department, where they'd patiently helped him retrieve the detailed records. These weren't just printouts. They were official documents, time-stamped, definitively proving her absence during the alleged incident. It was an irrefutable alibi. Next, he sought out their neighbors. Many were wary, but one kind woman, Mrs. Henderson, a longtime resident on their floor, agreed to help. Ethan meticulously drafted an affidavit from Mrs. Henderson, detailing how she had heard no unusual noise from Maya's apartment on the night in question, and emphatically denying that she had ever made a complaint. He made sure she understood the legal implications of a sworn statement, and she signed it with a firm hand. Then came the true breakthrough. Remembering Maya mentioning a few strange emails from the building management, Ethan asked her to dig through her old correspondence. There, buried deep, he found several email exchanges from the building management that, while not explicitly illegal, hinted at a strategic tenant turnover plan and discussions about optimizing property value through modernizing units. To Ethan's sharp legal mind, these weren't innocent business memos. They were veiled references to pushing out current tenants for renovations and higher rents. It was the smoking gun, revealing their true intentions. Finally, a poignant piece of evidence arrived, a letter from another tenant, Mr. Chun, who had moved out just weeks before Maya received her notice. Mr. Chen's letter, addressed to a local tenant advocacy group, detailed strikingly similar veiled threats and intimidation tactics from the management, all designed to make him feel unwelcome and force him out. It was a pattern clear as day. As Ethan pieced together this puzzle, there was an exhilarating intellectual thrill. Each piece of evidence, like a CSI-style visual breakdown, clicked into place, strengthening his case. Maya watched him with a mixture of awe and profound gratitude. Her hope, once a fragile flicker, now burned brightly. She saw not just her little brother, but a brilliant, determined advocate. The initial fear that had gripped her slowly dissolved, replaced by a deep sense of trust. With his evidence meticulously organized and his arguments finely honed, Ethan was ready. He was ready to challenge the dismissive glances and deliver a masterclass in unexpected advocacy. What happens when youthful brilliance meets established authority? The atmosphere in courtroom 3C was tense, thick with anticipation. Judge Eleanor Grant, a woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper intellect, sat on the bench, observing the proceedings with an almost imperceptible scrutiny. Across the aisle, Ms. Davies, the opposing counsel, a formidable attorney with years of experience, projected an air of confident superiority. She barely spared Ethan a glance, clearly expecting a quick, easy win. But Ethan, despite the initial condescension, remained utterly composed. When his turn came, he spoke with a calm, clear voice that belied his age. His first move was a calculated surprise. He calmly demanded that the defense provide all documentation related to the alleged lease violation on the specific date mentioned in the eviction notice. Ms. Davies bristled, clearly unprepared for such a direct and legally precise request from a minor. The judge, however, nodded, acknowledging the procedural validity of Ethan's demand. Next, Ethan called Mrs. Henderson to the stand. Her testimony was straightforward, heartfelt, and utterly devastating to the opposing side. She looked directly at the judge, stating unequivocally that she had heard no excessive noise from Maya's apartment and had certainly never filed a complaint. Ms. Davies attempted to discredit her, but Mrs. Henderson's sincerity was unshakable. Then came the visual proof, a moment of undeniable impact. Ethan presented the security footage from St. Jude Medical Center. Projected onto a screen for the entire courtroom to see, the time-stamped video showed Maya in her nursing scrubs, busy at work, miles away from her apartment on the night of the alleged disturbance. The silence in the room was deafening. The air was charged with a shift in power. The turning point, however, came during Ethan's cross-examination of Mr. Sterling, the property manager. Ethan's questions were precise, relentless, and designed to expose the inconsistencies in Sterling's testimony. "Mr. Sterling," Ethan began, his voice even, "you stated the noise complaint was made anonymously. Is that correct?" Sterling, visibly uncomfortable, shifted in his seat. "Yes, it was." "And you proceeded with an eviction notice based solely on an anonymous complaint, with no other corroborating evidence." We believed it was credible." Belief, Mr. Sterling, or verifiable fact? Do you have any other documentation, police reports, another neighbor's signed complaint, even a timestamp log, to support this claim? Sterling stammered, admitting that the claim was indeed based solely on the anonymous report and that no other evidence was gathered. Ethan pressed on, guiding Sterling into admitting that his company was exploring strategies to modernize the building. It was a delicate dance, as if thought bubbles were appearing above Ethan's head, revealing his strategic thinking in real time. He calmly pointed out the procedural violations, the lack of proper investigation, the reliance on unsubstantiated claims, and the rushed eviction process. He suggested, ever so gently, that this pattern of behavior pointed toward a potential violation of the California Fair Housing Act. Ms. Davies objected fiercely, but the damage was done. The flimsy nature of their case and their underlying motives had been laid bare. Witness the moment a 17-year-old turns the tables on a seasoned legal team. What does it truly mean to find your voice and use it for good? The courtroom hushed as Judge Eleanor Grant cleared her throat, her gaze sweeping over the room before settling firmly on Ethan and Maya. She delivered her verdict with a measured, resonant voice. The eviction complaint against Maya Rodriguez was baseless and without merit. She criticized the building management for initiating such serious proceedings without sufficient, verifiable evidence, stating emphatically that their actions bordered on harassment and suggested the case warranted further investigation for potential violations of the California Fair Housing Act. A profound sense of vindication filled the courtroom. Then, the judge turned directly to Ethan. A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched her lips. "Mr. Vance," she began, her voice softening slightly, "I confess I initially underestimated you. Severely. Your presentation was exemplary. Your understanding of the law, your meticulous preparation, and your remarkable composure under pressure are truly outstanding. You argued your sister's case with a skill that many seasoned attorneys would envy. It was a powerful moment of recognition, not just for Ethan's legal prowess, but for his integrity and unwavering dedication." A wave of relief washed over Maya, tears of gratitude streaming down her face as she instinctively reached for Ethan's hand, squeezing it tight. Ethan allowed himself a small, private smile, a profound sense of accomplishment blossoming within him. The weight of responsibility, which he hadn't fully realized he was carrying, lifted, replaced by a quiet pride. This wasn't just a win for Maya. It was a symbolic victory for anyone who feels powerless against larger systems, for every individual dismissed because of their age, their background, or their perceived lack of influence. Maya felt reborn, her future no longer hanging by a thread, her home secured. The emotional payoff was immense. The validation, the respect earned, and the profound realization of how one determined individual, driven by love and a sense of justice, can create ripples of change. Ready to be inspired? This is a story about Ethan Vance, a testament to the power of preparation, the strength of family bonds, and the unexpected places where true heroes emerge. We all face moments when we feel overwhelmed by systems that seem too big to fight. Ethan's journey reminds us that with courage, diligence, and a compassionate heart, we can challenge the status quo and secure a brighter future. If Ethan's story resonated with you, if you've ever felt unheard or have been inspired to stand up for what's right, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear this message of hope and empowerment. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that will ignite your spirit and empower your voice. And tell us in the comments below, what's a time you stood up for someone or when someone unexpectedly stood up for you? Your stories inspire us all,